Picasso,
Oui, non,
Guernica,
mais...
c'est apprendre
oui,
l'histoire, c'est représenter la
après, l'art,
violence
ça
des
dépend de tout
faits.
le monde, tu vois. L'art, tout le monde a un avis différent, même si l'artiste il essaie de dégager une idée, pour tout le monde c'est différent. Et il pourra jamais t'apprendre, imaginons, aie toujours confiance en toi, il pourra jamais le retranscrire en images.
I like this documentary. I think this is a really cool documentary, with teenagers sort of in the place between childhood and adulthood and kind of looking back and looking forward and asking each other really important questions about life. And then, of course, I thought the through line was art. So it kept coming back to art and expressing ourselves through art and our senses. And I really love that they were writing letters and reading them and playing with the painting and the fruit and the colors and all of that. I thought it was a really cool, expressive documentary. Cute music. It reminds me of silent films in some parts, along with the visuals that were being shown. I like that they were able to disagree with each other and have their own opinions. Some people sort of don't really stand up for their own opinions, and I like that these teenagers were already in a really good place with that. And I like the whole idea of the beauty and the simplicity of life, the beauty in the small things, because that's kind of, all we have is each moment. So I like how he said, I find life beautiful. The narrator had a great voice. I thought it was beautiful cinematography, especially in the opening shot and the shots of, the outside shots. I really like the black and white close-ups of the faces and really liked this a lot. I love the ending and how the two guys were talking about the film. So really well wrapped up, great film, and good luck.
An ordinary experience it's funny because it's everything but that. There is something so extraordinary in the ordinariness of this piece, of this young couple being able to be so introspective and thoughtful and open and transparent about their feelings, their wants, their dreams, their fears. It certainly helps decry the argument that this younger generation is kind of apathetic and incapable of this kind of openness. There's, of course, cultural differences here, so some might argue that the European perspective is able to be more emotional and extroverted. But regardless, how we see them conduct themselves here is incredibly brave and thoughtful and inspiring, even, I would say.
Wishes for an ordinary experience. This is very poetic. I love the monochrome close-ups, the intimacy and vulnerability. Those scenes on the sand, playing with shadows. Shadows are dancing and mingling and they are intertwined and they connect and then they divert. It's very powerful and it looks very magic and just unassuming. It's just shadows on the sand, but I think it's very profound. The concept in general of this social experiment that explores the art's role in shaping character. And they say that we are all artists and the music brings a nostalgic vibe as well. We have some insights into art, love and beauty and the whole premise of 3 days for finding each other. It's very powerful and I enjoyed them a lot. They have great chemistry too. It was beautiful to watch.
An ordinary experience. I really loved this. I thought this was really, really fascinating. And I loved that they were asking like 16-year-olds. You have some life experience, you have, matured enough that you know your own mind, you know your own opinions, you have a point of view, but you're still young enough that and they talked about it at the very beginning of the film, like there's still this kind of feeling of innocence or this feeling of hope and this feeling of optimism that hasn't quite been tainted yet. There's like this type of something that when you're young and the whole world is in front of you, and not your whole life, but you know, the bulk of your life is in front of you, and you are, you know, just starting to really learn who you are. You're starting that kind of process of really solidifying who you are and how you want to be kind of seen in, you know, from the rest of the world's perspective. I think there is such a beauty in that perspective. I think there's such a beauty in that time because it's just like this great kind of meeting of, like I said, innocence and youth and hope, but you also have your own voice, you also have your own opinions, you also, you know, have your point of view, and it's like that is just starting, and I think that's such a beautiful time, and I think this film is such a beautiful example of that, of asking each other, especially because then it's not even like you're being asked by an adult, so you feel the need to, you know, say a certain thing or something like that. You're being asked by somebody that is essentially your peer, somebody that's your same age, but that you don't know. So, you know, you're not trying to, coach or, you know, set your responses a certain way. But I loved that it was just them two together kind of going through at least asking the questions and going through the responses and asking each other like really deep questions of like, what do you think art is? What would you tell yourself as a 7-year-old? What would you tell yourself as a 30-year-old? How would you describe yourself? Like all of these different things that are actually like very deep questions. And I loved that they were asking each other because like I said, I think that it adds to a certain level of like authenticity with the responses because, you know, you're talking to someone that you view as a peer as instead of somebody that is older or has some sort of authority. And I think that their responses were really, really interesting. And I loved that even on the things that they could not agree on, that they were like, I understand your perspective. That is just not how I see it. And that was kind of the end of it. They didn't need to fight or argue about who is right and who is wrong. They even went so far as to say, like, I see the merits of what you're saying. I understand where you're coming from. That's just not how I personally see it. And I think that's because of this reason, because of how we, you know, grew up differently or, you know, whatever they said. And like as an overall theme, because they brought up art so early on and they kind of brought it up a few times throughout the film, I loved what they kind of said at the very end when they were trying to kind of classify art and talk about art as, you know, it being like when we often think of art, we think of like the really amazing, like studied, like praised painters and musicians and writers, and you know, we think of like these great almost historical figures, but art can also be an everyday thing. It can also be an ordinary thing. It can also be just something that you do every day. It doesn't have to be this big thing. It can just be something for you. And I that's at least like what I took away from part of this as well. And I loved that message. I loved the commentary that we got from the two kind of 16-year-olds. Because like I said, I thought that they offered a really, really interesting perspective and that they had valid reasons for what they were saying, and that, you know, their journey is kind of just beginning, and that's beautiful.
This film is called An Ordinary Experience. This was a brilliant contemplative film. What set it apart for me was the lovely sense of camaraderie between the two central figures. I enjoyed the warmth they showed towards one another and how they really challenged one another regarding art and other important elements in their lives. The soundtrack was gorgeous, a nice blend of jazz and orchestral, and the cinematography was awesome, lots of beautiful shots of nature, and also fun close-up shots of the two faces. The philosophical nature of the questioning really got me thinking about my own views on art. I would love to see more work from this clever group. Well done, An Ordinary Experience. Check it out.